Ghana and Nigeria in the fall. Now, I chose Nigeria because of the noted dramatist Wale Soyinka. At that time, my focus was the theater. My love for film was not yet born. The Civil War had just ended, so Nigeria was in the midst of rebuilding the nation. So every day was truly a new day towards the goal of the motto, One Nigeria. Now, from this location, I not only viewed what was happening all over Nigeria, but what was taking place around the world, and particularly back in the United States. The lifestyle and culture of Nigeria caused me to view everything through a different lens. A global consciousness was being birthed in me, but I was unaware of it at that time. But as a result of this time in Nigeria, that I extended to almost a full year to complete a separate degree program at the University of Ibadan, along with taking another 6 months to travel city by city along the west coast of Africa, from Lagos to Casablanca. I saw and experienced many things. And even though I returned to the US more than a year later, my body, the physical part of me had returned, but the mental, the spiritual part, has somehow never fully returned. It remains, as I put it, on approach. And that to me is a good thing. When your mind, body, and spirit are not bound by geographic or national borders, means that your physical body will follow this lead to the next destination, powering ultimately a global identity. And this has been my journey since that time in Nigeria over 52 years ago. I chose then to study film when I returned and began working in the film industry. My first project was in fact to return to Nigeria and retrace the steps of my university sojourn. Films in the Caribbean followed, along with filmmaking in Venezuela, and having the unique opportunity to have an audience with Fidel Castro, joining a film team documenting the International Youth Festival in Havana in 1978. But what really crystallized this pursuit of global consciousness to become now a global identity has been my work in Asia, and principally in Japan. Now, as a film student, I would watch Japanese movies, starting with the old masters, Kinoshita, Naruse, Mitsuguchi, classes for NYU Film School. They would have a Kurosawa day, where at the Elgin Theater, that was at 18th and 8th, they would show Kurosawa movies from 10 in the morning until well after midnight. And I would just sit there eating popcorn all day, watching movies. And they would do this with all the great Japanese masters and the European masters, and at times, selected filmmakers of color. Now, many years later, at the peak of my career in television, I had the opportunity through the National Endowment for the Arts to go to Japan and to watch a Japanese film being made from start to finish, something I had always admired and hoped to do. Now, preparing for this 6-month sojourn, I recall my images of Japan, the mixture of so many things. The made-in-Japan Japanese toys of my childhood, the black and white Japanese movies I saw as a film student, and of course, the numerous sushi restaurants of New York City. Now, I rise as an American creative artist sponsored by the National Endowment for the Arts and co-sponsored by Japan's Bunkacho, in residence at the International House of Japan. They gave me this wonderful meishi, or business card as it's called. But I soon found out that that didn't mean anything at night in Japan. Because at night in Japan, we were just another black man on the streets of Shinjuku or Roppongi. And what did the sight of you mean to most Japanese? I began to see clearly that there was this whole legacy in Japan regarding people of color, based on a dissemination of images of people of color in Japan. So regardless of how you come to Japan, you don't walk around with your meishi like a placard on your chest saying, "Look at me, I am so-and-so with company so-and-so." Despite this reality in Japan of being an outsider of color, which could have sent me straight back to the US, there was understanding that was also crystallizing from my time in Japan. A feeling I realized that I first experienced in Nigeria, a psychic freedom, a phrase I borrowed from television correspondent Bill Whitaker, one of the other African Americans I met while in Japan. In Nigeria, despite always being reminded that I was an American, something you won't often hear in America, It was the first time I was in a place where the majority of people were people of color. This curiosity about me as an African American that is often hostile in the American experience was absent in Nigeria. And because of that, I became instilled with a feeling of pride, a feeling of belonging, even though it was made very clear to me right from the start that I was an outsider. I was an American. And something very similar took place for me in Japan, because in Japan, the safety of day-to-day survival is never threatened. This emotional and spiritual recall unearthed that same feeling that I had experienced in Nigeria. And I became cognizant for the very first time of how much energy African Americans spend just navigating personal safety in America. This empowerment was another component nurturing my global identity. Now, this powerful time in Japan led to my first film there, Struggle and Success, the African American Experience in Japan, where I celebrated those African American men and women who, by means of psychic freedom, were living out their global identity. Presenting this film in Japan and around the world has given me the opportunity to share this thesis, global consciousness, global identity, and through it, 3 other films were made. Doubles, Japan and America's Intercultural Children, that celebrate the lives of people born of 2 cultures, who saw themselves not as one half of anything, but as 100% of both cultures, because they no longer define themselves solely by nationality or ethnicity. They saw themselves as citizens of the world, part of a vast global community of persons of mixed culture. Then came After America, After Japan, that shattered the concept of home being the only place of your birth. These global citizens of Japan and the US had created home in the host nation and were totally at peace with their new identity that embraced the best of both worlds. The 2011 Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami, despite the tragedy, presented another opportunity. Via the film Live Your Dream, I was able to showcase the work of another potential global citizen, Taylor Anderson, who unfortunately lost her life pursuing her dream of global identity through teaching, and in the process encouraging her students in Japan to do the same. And this brings me to my point. How are we sharing our personal stories, the celebration of those experiences that brings us to events hosted by CILECT? How do we add to our toolbox each time we meet in cities all around the world? And how do we share that experience? I mean, primarily with our students. Are we creating the proverbial New Orleans second line before we transition out of this life? Now, all of you in the room today and around the world on Zoom or Teams participating in this event have a global consciousness, or you would not be here. You would not be part of CILECT. But by being in the room today, you have taken a stand inspired by your global consciousness and global identity, fueled each and every time we meet to celebrate the work that we do, preparing the next generation of media makers. Because of our global consciousness, and because that consciousness has been molded by challenges, change is not a challenge for us. Change just means it's time to pivot. Change inspires us to stay current, because what is now current is the foundation for our students today. So in that regard, as we're now confronting a new great change called AI, AI is not a danger to what we do. AI must be embraced and made into another tool to make our teaching and our work more efficient. Now, I'm old enough to remember the discussions and outcries when we moved from an analog world into a digital universe. Did it destroy the work that we do? Did it destroy us? No. In the beginning, some considered it a danger to the canon of the work, to the aesthetic of film. The change happened, we embraced it, and we made it our own. And from those early, as I call them, sizzling video images days, you remember the early days of digital. Now the digital palette has improved and matured, and it allows cinematographers an even wider palette than they experienced in the analog world. AI is, and it will continue to disrupt. There is nothing we can do to stop that. The only danger I see is if we do not grab hold of it for the sake of our students and our work and provide the necessary guardrails shaped not only by aesthetics, but also, most importantly, by ethics. So during the course of this event that you guys are participating in Johannesburg, and as we prepare to unpack AI in Beijing this fall, I challenge all of you to tap into your global consciousness, your global identity, to find new ways to inspire and energize the work of our students and our own work. Investigate ways to put AI to the test through your teaching. Your global consciousness brings you here today, and that makes all of us much more prepared to deal with the twists and turns of today's world. I urge you to share the stories that brought you here today, that led you to be part of CILECT. Pass these stories and this knowledge forward to your students. Our students have no choice but to be world-wise, and we are their mentors. So at a time when too many in the world are preaching nativism and advocating for strict boundaries, let's disrupt that. No more boundaries, no more circling of the wagons. Let's see how our efforts, utilizing AI, can be the start of a new revolution. And make that revolution extend our creativity, but extend it in a way that preserves human touch. Now, in Japan and China, there are kanjis, or pictograms, that are used to express knowledge, thought, or feeling. Now, there's a kanji that can be read two ways. For some, this kanji can be read as chaos, but that very same kanji is also read as opportunity. Now, if AI were a kanji, how would you choose to read it? I challenge everyone to put your global consciousness to the test and use everything in our power to our best results. Thank you very much for having a chance to talk to you guys today.
Thank you so much. I'm here, Reggie. I'm here. Thank you so much for that very riveting and very interesting presentation. You know, the first thought that came to me was, I wonder if we should be talking about global identity, or we should be talking about global identities in plural, because I don't think there is one. And the reason I say that, I'm also curious really to understand your amplification, your ability to analyze and to amplify and to deconstruct what this global identity means. And I'll tell you why. Because you said that it's not part of your racial identity. It's not part of your national identity. So in my mind, I'm thinking, then what is it then? Like, what is the essence of a global identity for you? And I suppose the second part is the reason I suspect strongly that it's not global identity, but global identities is because of the nature and the configuration of belonging. It's easy to think of citizenship as simply you either belong or you don't, right? But I think we can all agree that there are people who very easily occupy the margins of culture, not just the outside or the inside, but the marginal elements and the sort of like boundaries and peripheral lines of culture. Certainly when you think about white people in China and their experiences in China, they are culturally outsiders. But the nature of the way in which whiteness has a cachet around it. And I'm thinking about you as a black person with an American accent in Nigeria. versus Yolo from South Africa going to Nigeria, whether or not those kinds of global identities are equivalent. I actually don't think they are, right? So I suppose the first question in my own roundabout way is, what is the depth, what is the essence of what you call a global identity? If it's not tied to race, if it's not tied to nationality, what is it for you? Because I'm still trying to download it from the air, like to get a sense of what is Reggie talking about. Is it? Let me make an example. Is it one's ability or proclivity or willingness to learn new cultures? Is it one's ability, willingness to learn new languages? Is it exactly what you pointed out? There were no hands and yours went up. Is it an excitement and an incitement to explore new things? What exactly is a global identity if it's not tied to race, it's not tied to nationality?
Yeah, but you're hitting it.
Let me just close this.
Right on the head. Can you get the audio?
Yes, I can hear you.
See, the global identity is constructed from all of those things you're constructed using race. It's constructed by nationality. It's constructed by religion. In other words, instead of looking at all those things as separate, you combine all of them and allow those things for you to welcome in something new. You see what I'm saying? And embrace that and challenge that and experience that by means of the things that you bring with you, how you were brought up, where you were brought up. You follow me? So that the identity becomes an amalgamation of all of those things together. Instead of seeing yourself separate and apart, be it racial, be it nationality, be it ethnic, you say to yourself, I wish to be a world citizen. I wish to be somebody who can look at this entire planet as my place. Mm-hmm. So we bring it all together. That's the point. That's the work.
Thanks. Thank you, Reggie. I would like to open it up to the floor. I've got one or two questions, but I think let's see what others have to say. Any questions or comments? I actually did think about, and rightly or wrongly so, I thought of, the boom of the concept of multiculturalism in the 90s and how there was this big excitement around multiculturalism. And then obviously there was an equal and equivalent critique of multiculturalism as an erasure of difference, as an erasure of gender, class, race, politics. The idea of multiculturalism as a kind of liberal expediency for people who consider themselves liberal and who want to gloss over difference. But anyway, that's just a thought that I have. Any questions or comments from the floor? I think while people are thinking, Reggie, I also thought about, I love the ending of your presentation because yesterday's speaker spoke about danger as a concept that has a duality to it. And he framed it in this manner. Certain knowledge can be dangerous for certain people. He said, for whom is something dangerous? And against whom is something dangerous? Right? If I remember correctly, like something can be dangerous for you, but not necessarily for me. So I love how you end. Let me actually go to, because I have it here. academic fraudulence, intellectual theft, right? Again, questions of expediency. Isn't that the kind of chaotic element? Certainly we cannot say everything about AI is good, right? Just like we cannot say everything is bad. I'm literally just picking your brain here again about the politics of the binary. So you're saying you can either read it as one or the other. Is there an opportunity to read it as both? As containing a kind of ethical necessity that we do need to think of the ethics of AI on the one hand, but we also do need to think of the ways in which it can be appropriated in, to use your words, in chaotic ways, right? I mean, there's a lot that I have, but what's your thought on that? And I see a hand there. I'm gonna wait to get more hands, Ken, before I take your hand. But what's your thought on the fact that, and again, to use your term of amalgamation, that, you know, maybe it's not one or the other. It's not you see it as bad or you see it as good. Maybe we need to acknowledge that actually it is both.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. Potentially, both things exist. That's why sometimes you guys can read it. My thing is, what is your mission? How do you want to use the potential here? Despite the possible dangers, despite the possible appropriation of intellectual property, can we not shape the potential that chaos can create? But it's not one or the other. Is in fact both. That's why that kanji can be read. It's how you want to act on it. Will chaos steer you into a rabbit hole where you won't do anything and allow chaos to overtake it? Or will you acknowledge the chaos, meet it head on, and turn it into an opportunity?
All right, Ken, do you want to come through?
It must not come there.
Can
you hear me from here, Reggie?
Can you hear? Maybe come closer. Do we want to circulate the mic, guys? Can you circulate this? No, it's not.
Where must I stand? By this mic?
You can come here or there. It's fine.
Hi. How you doing? Hey, hi. My name's Ken Kaplan. Pleased to meet you. Thank you for that. Yeah, hey, thanks for that presentation. So, I was interested when you were talking about, I think what did you call it? Global psychic identity, right?
Psychic freedom.
Psychic freedom.
Psychic freedom, yeah.
And given the time that you took the opportunity to put your hand up and go off to Nigeria for that experience, it seems very linked to the sort of to an internationalist movement against imperialism and against colonialism at that time. I mean, as you mentioned, Nigeria was just coming out of the Biafran War and the civil war there. So how much is this sort of identity linked to class struggle and an identity that actually tried at its time with the Comintern, the Communist International, to transcend ideas of race and nationality and cast these struggles as an internationalist struggle against capitalism and against oppression of the working classes by the capitalist elite? Thank you.
Question, because I agree with you in terms of what was going on at the time. I personally, for me, I was motivated because at that time, due to the rise of black consciousness, the questions that were being posed in my community, the African American community, were those of Africa and being African people, and what did that mean? So, my raising my hand was my way of addressing that. Taking a hard look at that, a direct look at that, and saying, no more romantic notions about what Africa might mean to African Americans. I want to know firsthand what that is. And so that's what motivated me to make the Hajj, the pilgrimage at that time. Though I don't want to discount the ideas and movements that you're speaking of. It's just that I personally, that didn't motivate me to make. My motivations were sort of in a different way.
Thank you, Reggie. Are there any other comments from anyone on the floor? Reggie, I'm curious to know, because you said that AI is not a danger, and I loved that line. I'm wondering if you would share with us some of the ways that you have incorporated AI in a way that really lives up to that statement, right? Because I think that there are ways in which AI pedagogically, artistically, educationally, in terms of social, cultural, artistic teaching practice, that can, if I can use the word, inoculate it of its danger for that particular context. So in other words, it is not necessarily possible to cheat, to use it in a fraudulent manner for a particular context. And I think I can believe you, obviously, when you say AI is not dangerous in a particular context, right? But I do think that AI can be dangerous in other particular contexts. Can you share with us some of the ways in which, either in your teaching practice or your artistic practice, you've made use of AI in ways in which that really lives up to what you've said, which is AI is not dangerous?
Yeah, no. I mean, any technology can be potentially dangerous. I mean, that's it. My exploration with AI so far have been through the lens of teaching directly and how I can see it to be a new tool for not only for myself, but for my students. One of the things that I emphasize when I'm teaching directly is preparation. And that's how I'm exploring and testing AI to see how it can be a partner in preparation. So so far that's what I've been doing. And I'm sort of taking it step by step, baby steps, to be sure that what AI can do won't cause my students to stop being creative. You understand that because AI can fill in the blanks with so many different things. I'm just trying to see how I can keep their focus on what they want to say with their work and use AI merely as a tool. Hello?
No, I can hear you.
Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can still hear you and see you.
Okay, yeah. My screen went blank, so it's okay as long as you can hear me.
Sorry for that.
So that's how so far, I've been working with AI and experimenting with AI and testing it as a tool to use for preparation.
No, thank you so much for that, Reggie. And in your work, have you started dabbling with AI in your directorial endeavors?
No, it's again, I'm only just beginning with it. I'm working on a brand new project now. And once the project gets to a certain point in our pre-production, that's when I'm going to start to make use of AI as a way of presenting our new project to potential investors and potential support.
All right. I think I saw a
As a
hand.
visualization tool,
I
yeah.
think I saw a hand at the back. Do you want to come closer, please, since we don't have a...
Yeah. Again, I can't see anything anymore. I'm afraid to touch anything on the screen and disconnect, so.
You know what happened?
You can hear me, that's
Yeah,
good.
no, we can hear you and we can see you, so no stress on our side.
Great, okay, good.
We can see you. Sure. Anyway, I think they can hear you.
Once again, thank you very much for a very beautiful presentation. And I'm fascinated by the discourse that talks about identities, that talks about home, the concept of home, the concept of displacement and movement. And then you want to integrate that with the creative industries and of course the filmic industries that we are gathered here. Community which has not had the same experience that you have had, to go out there and experience many things, they will not embrace AI in that sense. I'm talking about those that are communities that are probably far removed from these spaces where we are discussing it. If, for example, I use AI to resurrect the voice of a dead man and clone the voice and probably clone the face, and then I bring it out in a film, morally, would that be acceptable to some of the communities that are not experiencing what you're experiencing in living, of course, the bigger and wider world out there? That's my question. And also coming back to how Africans can make use of AI as an opportunity. Because Africans are simply defined as people who consume technology, consume knowledge that comes from the West. We are consumers, but we want to consume in a better way. Maybe that's also came out from what you were discussing, that we want to use that tool that has been presented to us, but not as it is. Maybe we model it in a certain way that it becomes acceptable and usable in our own community, within our own identities. I don't know whether that would be acceptable from what you were discussing. Sorry to take a lot of time, but thank you once again for a presentation well done.
No. Wonderful points that you're raising. I'm sort of taking notes on the side as you were speaking.
Sorry, let me
talk
just...
first about the
Can I
first
just...
example you raised of
Just a
sort
second.
of
Sorry, Reggie.
resurrecting someone. Yeah,
I just want to make a quick point. If you want to speak, there's a mic that's circulating around. So I'm not sure if we should take a bout of hands or we should just go one by one. But I think for now, maybe let's get you to answer that question and then we'll see if we have more hands.
Okay, sure. What I was going to say is the speaker brought up about resurrecting someone from the dead and cloning and that sort of thing. See, to me, that's the ethical things that we have to use in the use of AI. I mean, that becomes a very ethical question, a very ethical challenge. Are we going to use the tool for those purposes? Now, for my own self, that's not something I'm going to entertain in my own way of doing things. It's just, to me, that is sort of out of bounds. And again, that's why I spoke about we have to create the guardrails. We have to create those boundaries that we say, well, we'll use AI for this, but we're not going that place with it. So that's my kind of response to that. And again, this whole idea of people outside of our academic communities and outside of certain communities in the world who may not have access to travel and all that, to me, that's important, but it's not a game changer. It's not something that shuts everything down. I think that every community and everyone who has the opportunity to experiment and to explore AI needs to experiment and explore it doing their own thing. I don't think the time is now for us to start again saying that this is the way you use the technology and this is the only way. I think each community, each person has to embrace the technology and put it to use in the way that they wish to put it to use, not be bound by some sort of you know, this is it, this is the only way. Because I think that's potentially the danger. When suddenly one community or one group decides that they're going to put a label on this technology and say, this is how you do it. We have to resist that sort of, to me, that's the appropriation that we have to resist. And we have to all look at it in the open source way that it is for the most part now. Everybody has the opportunity to tell their story, to use the tool in the way they wish to, and I'd like to keep it that way. And again, only govern it by what I feel are certain ethics, but again, my ethics may not be your ethics, you see. And so I can only speak for myself in terms of that. But my feeling is that this is not, no one should feel left out. You know, let's keep the tool available to all so that all can express themselves by the tool in the way they wish to.
I think for me, Reggie, and I love the idea of there's something powerful but incomplete about the idea of a global identity. Not only because people exist in their own self-concepts, right? Because we each have a self-concept, but we also live within a concept of the other about us. And I'm thinking about the fact that in the global north, where you are based, what AI does for you is pretty much, you know, reproduce, produce, generate information that you are very familiar and home to. It's a little bit different when you come to the global south, where it often feels like the algorithmic biases of AI make it very hard for us. If I put something like on AI, for example, ChatGPT, I say something like, write an essay on Isintu of Credo Mutwa and his philosophy on African culture. Now, that's not something that AI is going to produce very well, because the reservoir of that knowledge is not so much yet present in the kind of digital sphere. And so I think for a lot of us in the global south, we find ourselves having to teach AI who we are, so that it can produce more and more accurate answers, right? And so the concept of the global citizen as sort of divorced from race, divorced from nationality, divorced from cultural affiliation becomes very, very hard in such contexts, because these are the kinds of technological realities we deal with in the global south. We know that there is information we cannot really get from AI as people of the south. And when we do play around with AI, like you said, it's play around with it. And really, you teach it, you play around, hopefully, with the aim and goal of teaching it, to actually figure this out and to know it. And it's actually very interesting then how it is the North that sort of developed this kind of tech, but really for the most part, it is the South that is teaching AI. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Very much so, very much so. And again, maybe again, these are the steps that must be taken now in the beginning with AI, because AI cannot be everything for everyone, and you're pointing it out so well. And let me just clarify something. My sense of a global identity and is not something that's divorced, again, of race or ethnicity or culture or nationality. It is, again, looking at where you come from, who you are, be it from the global north or the global south, and then looking at the other worlds that you're going to enter, and say, okay, here's what I'm bringing with me as I enter into that world. What am I going to be able to absorb and and gain from this new world, or this new place that I'm entering, and adding that to who I am. You see what I'm saying? There's not a bargain here or a transaction going on. What I'm talking about is we approach the world with this idea that we're going to always add on to who we are and what we are. See, there is your teaching metaphor that you're saying. We're always teaching in some way, shape, or form. And right now, you're right. AI is not, fully versed in the ideas and in the world and the history of the global South. So that's the challenge, and that challenge has to be met by you and others from the global South, so that there's not a void, there's not a hole there.
I'm actually also just thinking about ideas of technological determinism, like how much we make of AI. When I was with Professor Mystery in Sweden, one of the things she said was, I'm so sick of talking about AI. And I'm actually wondering if just as much as there was so much alarm and moral panic around the development and the creation and the innovation of the television set, the radio, or the internet, rap music, if you play it backwards, you'll hear the devil's words. If you watch it for long, then you will have a brain that thinks less than other people. You remember things. People who watch video games more are somehow more socially crippled than people who don't. There's always this, more determinism that is somehow sneaks into conversation around AI. And I think for our purposes in this discussion, those conversations and those positions can be polarized between for and against, right? And I'm wondering if there's a middle ground somewhere in that kind of tendency to oscillate between extremes. I'm for AI, I love AI, or I hate AI. Is there a middle path that actually says, AI is just another piece of technology, that we're making too much of a big deal of it? To follow Professor Jyoti Mistri's words, I'm so sick of talking about AI. Should we be talking so much about AI?
Yeah. Well, see, I think you raised the key point, You see, again, again, I'm of the age to remember these very same discussions were happening when we moved from analog to digital. Everybody was tired of what talked about how the digital world was now going to destroy everything, and it was going to be able to do this and that, and this is fake, and all the rest of the stuff. The stuff that we readily work with now in the digital environment, but that was just it. There was this place in the middle where both places came together and we met. And we decided that we were going to make digital now a tool, not a destroyer, but just another tool of creativity and expression in what we wanted to say and do. In music, in film, in all the technologies, in television. That's the step now we must take, so that we don't have to become tired of talking about AI, much as we didn't have to become tired of talking about digital back in the day. Let's embrace the fact that it is just yet another tool, maybe a very powerful tool that no one could have ever imagined, but it's here now. We're not going to put the genie back in the bottle of it. Let's go ahead and not so much see it as a total disruptor. Yes, it's going to disrupt some things, as it should, but let's find that place in the middle that we're talking about now, where we're not for or against or on two ends of a highway, refusing to come to the center and shake hands.
Thank you, Reggie. I'll see if there are any other hands or comments. I see one. Is there another one? This is the last round of hands we're taking. Any other hand or comments? Can you please pass the mic, please, to the hand? Yes. Oh, thank you. Perfect.
Someone went to the assembly. Here is what I need to know. My question is, should this global identity be allowed to metamorphosize naturally or consciously created? What frames my question in this regard is that the rich and the powerful in the world, they have been able to globalize their citizenship in their particular way. The people who seem to need this global citizenship are those that are actually powerless around the globe. Now my question is that if we consciously create this global citizenship, I think it should be the active efforts of the powerless. Now the question is that will it not cause antagonism that might actually even delay the naturally metamorphosized global citizenship? Hence I asked, should it be allowed to metamorphosize naturally or should it be done through active actions of those who desire it? Ngiyabonga.
Did you get that, Reggie?
There's a lot of echo in the room, so can you summarize the question for me, Yolo? Because then I'll hear it clearer that way.
Do you want to come a bit closer, maybe? Because of the echo, it's difficult to... Sorry for that.
Yeah.
Can I speak for
Yeah.
My question was, should this
Perfect.
should this global citizenship be allowed to naturally metamorphosize or be achieved through active actions of people that need it? Because I think the people that need it are the powerless in the world. Those that have power in the world are already global citizens. Thank you.
Okay. All right, yeah.
I think this raises again the perennial questions around what people have called the divide, the access divides of technology, access divides to even including AI. But anyway, go ahead, Reggie.
No. The question that's posed is a very interesting and important question. And as in your follow-up, Yolo, is equally important because, see, therein lies our challenge, that divide. And I think we all know, everyone in the room and everyone on this thing virally, that is our challenge here, okay, to this whole idea of enabling the world, everyone to be a global citizen, is that some people want to essentially continue this divide, continue this, to behold all the keys to the kingdom and make everyone else somehow powerless, you know. That is a challenge, and I'm not going to say I have all the answers to address that challenge, but you've hit it right on the head. There is another movement in place to hold on to this. You know, I call it the Alamo mentality, you know, that we want to keep it like it's always been because it served us well to keep it this way. We must resist that. We must challenge that. We must put that finally to an end because that is the thing that prevents everyone from becoming a global citizen, for everyone from seeing their worth and seeing their power in this entire world, not just in one place or in one ethnic, you know, idea. That all of this belongs to all of us. And so those of us who may have more access to things, you know, let us become a bridge to those who don't have the same kind of access.
Reggie, 2 last questions and then I will let you go.
Sure.
The first one is, have you thought of personally as a director now, right? Because I know you said that you're using it more currently, you're using AI more to teach, but I'm thinking as a film director, and even though you've not necessarily started using AI, have you started to imagine about what that kind of tinkering and playfulness and experimentation would look like or could look like for you as a film director?
Well, Yolo, I don't plan at this time to use AI in that way. Again, I'm looking at it as, again, a tool first for preparation, okay, and pre-visualization. But the actual execute.
No, come on. I think we've lost Reggie.
AI, CIA.
AI is banked to now suddenly replace reality.
Sorry,
Suddenly
Reggie.
replace it.
Reggie, we lost
Yes.
you there for a couple of seconds. Do you want to backtrack
sorry.
a little bit? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that right now for me, the use of AI is purely in preparation and pre-visualization, not in execution.
Okay.
That's something I am very resistant to because I don't want to basically, limit myself to whatever knowledge AI has to visualize, for the world, the ideas that I've creatively come up with. I still want that to belong to me and to belong to the people working with me so that there's still, again, the human touch, the heart to heart, the skin to skin of communication. I don't at this time see myself using it like the movies that Sora can create. Now, I'm not seeing that at all. It's fun, but I'm not seeing it.
One last question. Out of my curiosity, what is your next global identity escapade that you would love to go on as a global citizen?
Oh, you catch me now, because I don't have an answer to that. I'm in the midst of a new project right now that's going to take me more into Southern Europe. So I'm sort of curious as to what new things I will learn as we're developing this new property. So I would say, if anything, that's probably the next thing on my radar. And I really don't have anything else aside from that right now. But what I do know from past experience is that the things that I think I'm going to encounter, I'm going to encounter so much more. And that's the exciting part.
Thank you, Reggie. Can we give Reggie a hand of applause, everyone? Thank you, Reggie. It was really beautiful having you.
Yes, and have a wonderful rest of the conference.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Please. Bye-bye.
I think we're supposed to have a short break right now. Yeah. Short break, please. I think it's 15 minutes. Grab some coffee, tea, juice, water, stretch your legs, kiss someone.
Kiss someone.